So in the judicial system, when you are on trial for something, it's always innocent until proven guilty. And you're trying to usually the DA is trying to prove someone's guilt. And anytime that occurs, if you make a statement, that statement always has to be justified by a supporting reason. So it has to, in order for it to become a fact, it has to have a supporting justification for it. So in my triangle proofs, you always want to start off with, there's two sections to this, a statement and then followed by a reason. So proving is hard, and sometimes we don't know where to begin. One thing I always tell students is no fact is too small. So the very first step in all proofs, no matter what it is always restate the given information. The more they give you, the better off you are, the easier it is to prove. But you cannot use that information until you write it down as a fact. So you simply just rewrite what's given, restate the given information, and what's the reason? It's given to you. So you put down given as your reason. Then after you do that, so I call this steps 2 and 3 because it doesn't matter which order you do them in. I could do this next, or I could do this as the third step. But regardless, what I do after that is I write down all facts about the given information. Write down all facts about the given information. Okay, so what am I talking about here? Well, a lot of times in the given information, they have given you keywords. So you want to look for the following keywords. So let's say they tell you that you have an isosceles triangle. Well, if they tell you that you have an isosceles triangle, oh, hey, I know something about isosceles triangles. I know that at least two sides are congruent. I know that the base angles are congruent because of the isosceles triangle theorem. So those are facts that I'm talking about. If I'm given triangle ABC is an isosceles triangle, then angle whatever is congruent to angle whatever by the isosceles triangle theorem. So these are the keywords I'm talking about here. So isosceles triangle. Another keyword is maybe perpendicular. Well, of course, you have to know what perpendicular means. See, really and truly, proofs is just a vocabulary test. Perpendicular means, oh, hey, I have right angles. So if this segment is perpendicular to this segment, then I have two right angles. Why? By the definition of perpendicular. Okay, well, a lot of times they're going to tell you you could have a right angle. Well, if they tell you you have a right angle, then you know the measure of that angle is 90 degrees. They might tell you bisects. An angle is being bisected, or a segment could be bisected. Bisect tells me, oh, hey, something's being cut in half, and if something's being cut in half, I have congruent parts. Midpoint is another good one. Midpoint also means cut into congruent parts. Something's being cut down the middle, midpoint. And parallel lines are huge. When we're given parallel lines, then that leads to corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, the consecutive interior angles. So all of that is big. And then another keyword that you could see is equilateral triangle. Now, there are definitely more out there, but these are the main ones when it comes to triangles. So, restate the given information and then write down facts about the given information. Okay, now if you remember when it comes to stating two triangles are congruent, remember you always have to have three things marked on each triangle. So sometimes this might just give you two out of the three things. So you have to, a lot of times, look for stuff. That's why I said these can be flip-flopped. So look for, well, what are some things that we can look for, that we can use? What are some things that we've seen when it comes to justifying congruent triangles? Look for vertical angles. Look for the reflexive property is huge. And also linear pair. These are things that are going to be in a picture that you just have to be able to see and identify. But it's important that you make that statement, this angle is congruent to this angle because they're vertical angles. This side is congruent to this side. Oh, hey, because we have the reflexive property. Because you cannot use it as a reason, or you cannot use it until you make it a statement. So look for that. So these two steps can be flip-flopped. This one doesn't have to come first, but they have to be stated before the fourth step. Once you have three facts stated about your triangle, so you must have at least three facts. Once you have those three facts stated, then you more than likely have enough information to say this triangle, and you would name your triangle, is congruent to this triangle. Okay, so what are our reasons that we can state that two triangles are congruent? Hypotenuse leg. Side, side, side. Side, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. And last, angle, side, angle. So those are the only four justifications that you can use to prove two triangles are congruent. And depending on what you have marked will depend on which one you use. Now, a lot of times you're done here. A lot of times the only thing you have to do is prove that two triangles are congruent. And that's that. However, this is always going to be one of the final steps. It's either going to be the last step or it's going to be the second to last step. Sometimes, though, you have to prove certain parts of triangles are congruent, like maybe angle A is congruent to angle B, or side AC is congruent to side BC. And when that happens, then, so when you're having to show congruent angles or sides, such as angle A is congruent to angle B, or maybe side AB is congruent to side CD. So if that's what you're having to show, then guess what? Your reasoning for that is going to be the CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Here's the thing. if you use CPCTC, if that is one of your justifications, most of the time it's going to be the last justification that you use. And it will always follow after you make the statement about two triangles being congruent. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell students that. It doesn't matter how many times I say, this is last, this comes after this. Students still try to throw it somewhere in the middle, and that's wrong. See, order does matter when it comes to proofs. I cannot use CPCTC until I say this triangle is congruent to this triangle, okay? You cannot ride a bicycle until you typically start with a tricycle. I mean, there's just an order to things. You can't take Math 3 until you have Math 2. So you cannot use CPCTC until you've stated that the two triangles are congruent. So I'm going to write this down. And like I said, somebody's always going to forget it. But if CPCTC is necessary, it must always come after triangle whatever is congruent to triangle whatever. Okay, so that's it. Those are the 5 big steps when it comes to triangle proofs. Now I say 5 steps, sometimes there's more than 5 steps. A lot of times there's more than 5 steps, sometimes there's less than 5. But this is the flow of triangle proofs. This is the way we go about it. Now we're ready to apply.